Good afternoon on this Thursday, March 27th. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. Two masked gunmen on a motorcycle shoot and kill a Lebanese army warrant officer in the northern city of Tripoli. According to the chemical weapons watchdog, Syria sends 49% of the raw materials used for its poison gas and nerve agent program abroad for destruction. And U.S. President Barack Obama holds a historic first meeting with Pope Francis at the Vatican. Two masked gunmen on a motorcycle have shot and killed a Lebanese army warrant officer in the northern city of Tripoli. The security sources stated that the assailants shot Fadi Ali Jbaili, aged 40, in the back from close range. The officer, who was in his military fatigues, was attacked while waiting at the side of the Tripoli Boulevard to take the bus to go to work. Jbaili was taken to the local Annini hospital, where he died soon after. The Lebanese army said in a statement that the officer was critically wounded after two masked gunmen fired shots from their pistols towards him. Less than an hour later, gunmen fired and shot towards Police Corporal Samer Dandashi, but missed him. Sources say Dandashi is part of the Russian embassy security forces. He was wearing civilian clothes and was also waiting at the side of the road in Tripoli's Bab el-Raml neighborhood for transport to take him to work in Beirut. The Future Bloc movement is calling to end the security chaos across the country by the implementation of a comprehensive plan, in particular in the northern city of Tripoli and along the border with Syria. The bloc pointed out that the residents of Tripoli should be allowed to enjoy security and development. They also condemned the clashes that erupted in the Beirut neighborhood of Tariq el-Jdidi, considering the outlaws and the resistance brigades are responsible for the incitement. Concerning the situation along the Lebanese-Syrian border, the bloc denounced disregards by the foreign ministry on the violations committed by the Syrian regime to the Lebanese sovereignty. The cabinet is demanding to prepare an advanced security plan to deploy the army along the eastern and northern border with Syria in cooperation with UNIFIL. Concerning the presidential elections, the bloc called on rival political parties to facilitate the matter that will move Lebanon to a new era. Lebanon's cabinet is holding its first meeting since winning a vote of confidence in parliament, with ministers set to discuss the 72-item agenda, including the plan to resolve the increasing Syria-linked violence in Tripoli. The cabinet agreed to renew an existing order to provide the telecom data to security agencies despite the objections of the March 8 ministers. At the opening of the session of Abda Palace, President Michel Sleiman called for measures to counter attacks against the Lebanese army in Tripoli. The plan for Tripoli was drafted Wednesday by officials and is expected to be endorsed by the cabinet. The plan also proposed enhancing security measures at Lebanon's border with Syria in an effort to contain the fallout from the war over the border. During the session, Sleiman hailed the Arab League for expressing solidarity with Lebanon during the organization's recent summit in Kuwait, and tasked Foreign Minister Gebran Bassil with a follow-up on the League's resolutions relating to Lebanon. This just in, Beirut investigative judge Fuad Mouras has issued an indictment against Mohammed Adnan Nhaili, accusing him of premeditated murder of his wife Manal Asi, who he beat violently and viciously. Back in February, Nhaili used the kitchen appliance to strike Asi, who is a teacher, after a quarrel turned violent. In the indictment, the judge wrote that the day of the murder, Asi and Nhaili engaged in a dispute which turned violent after the husband accused his wife of cheating on him with another man. Nhaili had snatched Asi's phone and discovered WhatsApp messages between her and another man, including rendezvous and an exchange of photos between the two. The judge also exonerated the wife of Asi's alleged lover from incitement to murder. During interrogation, Rania Sahroud said she had phoned Asi and asked her to stop seeing her husband. She also told the judge that she found out her husband was cheating on her after she checked his phone and saw the romantic WhatsApp messages exchanged with Asi. The judge will refer the case to the criminal court, which will open Nhaili's trial very soon. The Syrian army and Hezbollah are advancing on the village of Flita near the Lebanese border, where rebels had fled following the fall of the Syrian city of Yabrud, according to Hezbollah sources and an activist group. There were heavy fighting yesterday evening and last night as the regime tried to take the town, but that has now stopped, according to Rami Abdulrahman, the director of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Abdulrahman added that a leader of the military council of Kalamoun, a rebel group, was killed in clashes, and around 8 others, including one of his assistants, were killed in a barrel bomb attack. Earlier this month, the Syrian army and Hezbollah took Yabrud after months of battles for the strategically located city, as it acted as a conduit for rebel supplies from Lebanon. Syria has sent 49% of the raw materials used for its poison gas and nerve agent program abroad for destruction, according to the chemical weapons watchdog overseeing the removal of the country's stockpiles. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, known as the OPCW, said in a report to the United Nations that the total percentage of chemicals either removed or already destroyed inside the country was at 53.6%. The report obtained by the Associated Press news agency on Wednesday said Syria pledged to remove all chemicals by April 13th, except for those in areas presently inaccessible, which face an April 27 deadline. Damascus agreed to destroy all chemical weapons facilities and surrender 1,300 metric tons of toxic agents to a joint OPCW United Nations mission by mid-year as part of a U.S.-Russian agreement negotiated after a chemical attack last August that killed hundreds of people around the capital. Coming up next, a baby abandoned at a Burger King as a baby is reunited with her child. Welcome back. You're watching Future Television. U.S. President Barack Obama held a historic first meeting with Pope Francis at the Vatican. He arrived amid the pomp and tradition of the Catholic Church, making his way to greet the Pope after a long, slow procession. Obama is the 9th president to make an official visit to the Vatican. Political observers said the meeting could be a bit to boost the U.S. president's support at home among Catholic voters. It comes as Obama's administration and the church remain deeply split on issues of abortion and contraception. Obama is wrapping up a 6-day European tour that has so far been dominated by the crisis over Crimea. This marks a change of pace for the president, who has devoted the past 3 days of a 7-day 4-country trip to securing European unity against Russia's aggressive posture towards Ukraine.
Of course, Ukraine is not a member of NATO, in part because of its close and complex history with Russia. Nor will Russia be dislodged from Crimea or deterred from further escalation by military force. But with time, so long as we remain united, the Russian people will recognize that they cannot achieve security, prosperity, and the status that they seek through brute force. Understand as well, this is not another Cold War that we're entering into. After all, unlike the Soviet Union, Russia leads no bloc of nations, no global ideology. The United States and NATO do not seek any conflict with Russia. And if the Russian leadership stays on its current course, together we will ensure that this isolation deepens. Sanctions will expand, and the toll on Russia's economy, as well as its standing in the world, will only increase.
Former Ukraine Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko has announced she will run for presidential elections set for May 25th. Tymoshenko, who was released from jail last month following the overthrow of President Viktor Yanukovych, said that she has earned the moral right to say she will combat corruption. She also said she would become a candidate for Ukrainian unity. Her renewed ascent to the forefront of public life marks the return of the most polarizing figures in Ukraine's political scene. She is variously admired as an icon of democracy and detested as a self-promoting manipulator with a shady past. Speaking of elections, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is assured of winning Egypt's forthcoming presidential vote, but at the cost of reviving the era of strongman rule as he faces a dilapidated economy and rising militancy in Egypt. Sisi's widely anticipated candidacy is being hailed by the millions of Egyptians who are weary of more than 3 years of turmoil since the Arab Spring overthrow of veteran strongman Hosni Mubarak. Sisi said in a televised address that it was the last time he would wear an army uniform and that he gives up his uniform to defend the nation and run in the elections which are expected next month. He also said Egypt was threatened by terrorists and spoke of returning the country to dignity. Following Sisi's announcement, there were protests by supporters of Mursi on the streets of the Cairo. Sisi's decision comes amid reports that one person had been killed during protests against Monday's court verdict that sentenced more than 500 alleged Muslim Brotherhood supporters to death. The number of known executions worldwide rose to at least 778 in 2013, a 15% rise from the year before, following a surge in Iraq and Iran, according to Amnesty International. China remains the world's biggest state executioner by far, the London-based human rights organization said in a report released this morning. Beijing is thought to have killed thousands of its own citizens, more than the rest of the world all put together. The annual report on executions worldwide said the Chinese authorities continue to threaten the figures on death sentences and executions as a state secret. Although Beijing said in November it would reduce the number of crimes eligible for the death penalty from the current 55, it still led the top 5 countries using the death penalty in 2013, followed by Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. The Philippine government signed a peace accord with the country's largest Muslim rebel group, the culmination of years of negotiations and a significant political achievement for President Benigno Aquino III. Aquino and leaders of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front witnessed the signing of the agreement at the presidential palace in Manila. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak, whose country brokered the peace talks, attended the ceremony. The deal grants largely Muslim areas of the southern Mindanao region a greater political autonomy in exchange for an end to an armed rebellion, but it will not end all violence in a part of the countries long plagued by lawlessness, poverty, and Islamist insurgency. The peace accord concludes formal negotiations that began in 2001. More than 120,000 people have died in separatist violence since the 1970s in Mindanao, the main southern Philippine island. It is home to most of the country's 5 million Muslims, but Christians, however, remain the overall majority. And the images from a Thai satellite show about 300 objects ranging in size from 2 meters to 15 meters. When photographed on Monday, they were about 201 kilometers away from the spot where a French satellite captured a floating group of objects on Sunday. The find comes after news that a French satellite had seen 122 objects in the same region, and it follows earlier sightings by U.S., Chinese, and another French satellite. Search crews have yet to put eyes on much and thus recover any of the objects, and experts warned on Thursday against putting too much stock in what the images show. We are talking about the Malaysian Airlines, which disappeared on March 8th. Australian officials leading the search had to suspend air missions before noon because of bad weather. 6 ships helping in the search area are continuing to work, but conditions are poor. The delay is the second time this week that harsh conditions in the isolated patch of the Indian Ocean have hampered operations. Search missions were called off on Tuesday also because of stormy weather. Finally, here's a story that will lift your spirits. Catherine DePriel, a 27-year-old woman who, as a newborn, was abandoned in the bathroom of a Pennsylvania Burger King restaurant, has been reunited with her birth mother after launching a 3-week search that garnered worldwide attention. DePriel began her quest to search for her mother on March 2nd by posting a photo on her Facebook page in which she held up a sign saying, "Looking for my birth mother. She abandoned me in the Burger King bathroom only an hour's old." In Allentown, Pennsylvania. Please help me find her by sharing my post. The photo was shared more than 30,000 times by Facebook users around the world, and DePriel's story landed in numerous media outlets. This eventually caught the attention of the mother who abandoned her, and she came forward to attorney John Waldron, who arranged for them to meet. DePriel says she felt pure joy when she met her biological mother for the first time and is planning on meeting with her again. She's very excited to establish a relationship with her and regain that missing part of her life. Now, on that note, our bulletin ends for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. 2 masked gunmen on a motorcycle shoot and kill a Lebanese army warrant officer in the northern city of Tripoli. According to the chemical weapons watchdog, Syria sends 49% of its raw materials used for poison and gas and nerve agent program abroad for destruction. And President Obama meets the Pope for a first time in a historic meeting in Rome. Well, those are your Thursday headlines live on Future Television. Make sure to tune in tomorrow at 4:20 for what's making headlines in Lebanon and the region. From here and all of us, good night.